booktube. Well, after a wonderful evening of wine and calzones and endless book talk with Hannah's books, it's now back to just me and the Bean here at Hyde Cottage. A very theatrical head turn, baby. She was, of course, a perfect angel during the visit. Wonderful, attentive, a little bit too attentive at times, but it's absolutely delightful. It's wonderful to have guests, taking all the precautions in the world, fully vaccinated, very careful. I had my friend Sam over last week, had Hannah over this week, and who knows who'll be over next week. If anybody does come, I will, of course, force them to film a video. But it's just as well. In the meantime, an element on this channel that I don't like to stress too much is that I always have work to do. When you are an editor and a freelance writer, you always have work to do. You don't ever, in the 21st century, you don't ever go home from the office. You don't leave anything behind. That's not how accumulating work like this happens. So it's sad that I don't have every single day of the week to sit and chat about books with Hannah, but it's good to be able to sit and get work done as well, which doesn't excuse why I'm making videos, but it's nice to talk to you as well. And we've got mail this morning by, I don't know, 8:30 a.m., something like that. It was almost 100 degrees here in Boston. It's just soaringly hot out there right now. So I have the fans and the AC units working here to keep the place nice and cool, but I am dreading the midday walk. I mean, first of all, it can't be any kind of long walk, which is what Frida wants, and second, it has, not only can it be a long walk, it has to be a short walk. It has to be just enough to get her filthy, sinful business done before we turn around and come back in. The heat just doesn't allow it. But there were still packages on the front porch. So we've got a periodical and 2 packages. That's enough to get us through a mail haul, isn't it? The periodical is the New Yorker. I don't know if this is one of their summer double issues. No, I don't think it is. This is just August 30th. I recently resubscribed to the New Yorker. Very happy that I did. I never find an issue now that doesn't have a lot in it that I like. I don't particularly like this cover. I saw this cover on the front porch, and I immediately knew what the title of this cover would be. It shows a tank blasting and burning its way through a labyrinth instead of finding a path. And I knew perfectly well, before I opened the issue, that the title of this cover was going to be Exit Strategy. And that's exactly what it was. That is the title of the cover piece. The cover drawing is by Christoph Niemann. It's called Exit Strategy. Of course, it's an allusion to the events of the American withdrawal from Iraq, or from Afghanistan, that have been in the news for the last week. And I have been, I don't think it's over the top to say I have been appalled, just appalled, by the mainstream media's reporting and characterization of the American withdrawal from Afghanistan. I have been appalled by what I've seen and heard mainstream news anchors and presenters and even analysts say about this story, when the facts are readily available. I hate to see it, not only because I know that a lot of people are going to take that as read. They're going to just believe the reports they're getting in the mainstream media without examining it any further. That used to be the role of mainstream media. They break down the data, and so you don't have to. You tune in at 6 o'clock and Walter Cronkite tells you what's true and what's not. That's not the only reason, though. Another reason that it really bothers me is because it plays directly into the hands of the fascists who are currently the majority in this country. In 2021, America is a majority Nazi country. There are more adult Nazi voters in this country than non-Nazi voters. And one of their primary rallying calls is that the press is the enemy of the people, that the press can't be trusted in any way. If you can get a would-be dictator, a would-be autocrat, to get the populace not to believe the press, then you're halfway to installing yourself as chancellor for life. If you can call the American press the enemy of the people, and have people chanting that and agreeing, have the press itself wearing it like a bone, if you can reach a point, in other words, the point that Donald Trump reached halfway through his presidency, where he told an adoring, yelling, worshiping crowd, he interrupted them just long enough from their chanting of "lock her up," to say what you're seeing and hearing isn't real. The unspoken corollary being, what I tell you is what's real. And if you have already delegitimized the press, that task is infinitely easier. And that task is made easier if the press is delegitimizing itself. You don't have to, you could, in the wake of this Afghanistan story, you could be the most ardent Trump detractor in the world. I may be the most ardent Trump detractor in the world. I was in the front ranks anyway, before he incited an armed insurrection to overthrow the government of my country and install himself as a dictator. Hail Trump. I may be one of those people, and even I have to, I will sound like a Trumpist when I talk about the mainstream media in this last week writing about Afghanistan. Just pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. An absolute failure. And it will be used as a cudgel in 2022 and then for the last time in 2024 against the American press, who will be, by that point, scrambling and frantically trying to inform the American people about what's happening, and it won't make a difference. No one will believe them. It'll be a classic case of the boy who cried Afghanistan. But that was just one element of this issue. A positive element, an element that I really liked, was an article. Let me see if I can find. I'll find it in the table of contents rather than in the magazine. The magazine had no cartoons to speak of. It's full of cartoons. They're all bad, unfortunately. And most of them are bad in ways that could have been good. I kept noticing that over and over again. Let me give you an example, if I can find one, of one where the caption simply isn't funny, and it could be. It could have been. The picture is a man talking to a woman who is tied to the tracks of a New York City subway. Now let's overlook the ineptitude here. Right? The lines are sloppy. The perspective is sloppy. She's not actually attached to the tracks, and he's not looking at her, which is the biggest fault. He's looking over here. He's not looking at her. That is just ineptitude. That is just an artist who's not ready for the Bergen County shopper, much less the New Yorker. And I have a soft spot for New Yorker cartoons. So to see this kind of shoddy work, but the caption makes it even worse. The caption is, "Don't worry, ma'am, it's weekend service, so there's lots of time to get help." Even off the top of my head, and I'm no New Yorker humorist, even off the top of my head, I could come up with 5 captions that would actually have gone a little way towards making that funny. Until at least you notice that the cartoon is ineptly done. That the man in the cartoon is not looking at the person he's talking to. But there was, this wasn't all bad, there was a really good piece in here. There's a short story by George Saunders, and it was really good. But there's also a piece in here about white-collar crime in America. What it is, how it's prosecuted, or maybe not prosecuted, what the punishment is like for people who are the rare people who are convicted of it, and what their life is like after punishment. And it's by Evan Osnos, who we saw a book from him just the other day on this channel. He has a book coming out called Wildland: The Making of America's Fury. And I read the book. I thought it was extremely readable and very passionate. I thought it had flaws. It loses a stitch here and there, and also gets carried away with itself, which is the foremost thing that you want to guard against when you're writing on that particular subject. It's the one thing that will lose you the sympathy of your readers. But this piece was terrific. This Evan Osnos piece was terrific. That's a name that I'll be watching for now. Same thing with A.L. Press. We saw that in the last New Yorker about deaths in prison, in the American prison system, deaths, and how many of them have nothing to do with pre-existing conditions or comorbidities. They're just people dying in prison, and a substantial number of those are suicides that could have been prevented, first of all, but there are a substantial number of them that aren't. I'm looking at those 2 names now because they haven't let me down. But then we have, in addition to that, we have packages, 2 packages. So let's see what we have here. I don't know if this is the last of the mail for today, but honestly, I went out just briefly, just a little while ago in order to check on my sparrows, and It's just brutal outside. I would be the first person to tell these drivers, just quit, just stop for the day. It's too hot for you to be doing your job. But people got to get their deliveries. So, oh, great. Okay. Okay, I don't have a sell sheet for this, but we've seen it already. We saw it in an advanced copy, and this is the finished copy of Colin Thubrund's book, The Amur River. Between Russia and Asia, the Amur River forms a large part of the border between Russia and Asia. And this is the finished copy. I think this is a September release, but I'll have to double check that. I mentioned when we saw this the first time that I really like this author. I don't think I've ever read anything about it that I don't like. And this is a river biography. This is a river book. Social, political, natural history. We've seen a few of those on this channel over the years, including that book recently about the Volga. So let me just for those of you who are new who don't remember that, the Amur River is almost unknown. Yet it is the 10th longest river in the world, rising in the Mongolian mountains and flowing through Siberia to the Pacific. For 1,100 miles, it forms the tense border between Russia and China. This frontier, simmering with the memories of land grabs and unequal treaties, is the most densely fortified on Earth. In his 80th year, Colin Thubrund is 80, good Lord, takes a dramatic journey from the Amur's secret source to its giant mouth, covering almost 3,000 miles. Harassed by injury and by arrest from the local police, he makes his way along both the Russian and Chinese shores, starting out by Mongolian horse, then hitchhiking, sailing on a poacher's sloop, and traveling the Trans-Siberia Highway. Having revived both his Russian and his Mandarin, Thubrund talks to everyone he meets, from Chinese traders to Russian fishermen, from monks to indigenous peoples. By the time he reaches the river's desolate end, where Russia's 19th century imperial dream petered out, a whole pivotal world has come alive. And I know that you might suspect that of being dust jacket boilerplate, but this author can do that. Even in his 80th year, he can do that. And in the midst of all of those personal stories, all of those encounters with good, bad, and indifferent people, there'll be lots and lots of, the ungentle term would be info dumping, but this author does it so well that you're not going to mind. Great. So the Amur River, I'll have to check the date on it. I'll look it up. I have recently reorganized my forthcoming book piles, and this will find a place in them. But it's a finished copy, so I'm thinking it's a September release. And then we have this next one, and we will be done. 2 packages. No need for a 40-minute video, much less 2 40-minute videos. No need at all. This one came in an envelope, but also wrapped in paper. Not really sure why that is. We'll put the paper aside. Paper can always be reused. Sometimes you'll get those obnoxious asbestos flakes, or sometimes those plastic peas, those little peas for packaging. But sometimes publishers will send you packages of books just padded with paper. And this is just folded paper. But it is perfectly reusable. As scrap paper, as pages for writing in a journal, it's perfectly reusable. So what I tend to do with it, not that you care, but you don't care about any of this, you just care about that. What I tend to do with this is I will take this piece, I will unfold it until it is flat, I will cut it so that all these little fringes are gone, and then I will fold this big piece, I might as well do it on camera, I will fold this big piece into the size of a page. I'll just keep folding it origami style until I get to the size of a page. And then once I've got it to that size, I'll take that stack of pages and bring it over to the floor, lay it flat on the floor, and pile oversized heavy books on top of it. A stack of 4 oversized heavy books. I'll just pile them there and forget about it. And in 3 or 4 days, I'll go back to that pile, I pick it up, and there won't be a single wrinkle left in those pages. They'll be as flat as if you'd bought them new. And then suddenly you've got more paper. So that's great. But anyway, what have we got? Aside, now that we're talking about it, we spent 10 minutes talking about the packing. Let's talk about the book now. Okay, this is from Mountaineer Books. Don't think I've ever received anything from them before. Mountaineer Books. What have you got to say for yourself? So this comes out on October 1st. This is by Katie Ives, and it's called Imaginary Peaks, The Reisenstein Hoax and Other Mountain Dreams. You mountaineering fans are going to want this. In 1962, the editors of Summit magazine received a submission about first ascents in an unknown range of mountains, the Reisenstein Peaks of British Columbia. The article was accompanied by a photo of granite walls that rose like Gothic spires. Dotted lines marked several routes. The main summit, the mysterious author claimed, remained tantalizingly unclimbed. The editors excitedly printed the article, missing the clues that the writer, later revealed to be Harvey Manning, had planted to hint that the story was a hoax. So the writer himself planted hints that he was lying. Imaginary Peaks is an engaging narrative that uses this little-known deception about a fake mountain range as a jumping-off point to explore our shared fascination with wild places and the lure of blank spaces on the map. This is the author's debut. This is her debut book. The well-known editor of Alpinist magazine details this adventure literary mystery of the Reisenstein hoax within the larger context of climbing history. The desire for first ascents, the pull of the unexplored, and the ageless appeal of imaginary peaks and places. Fantastic. Okay, so this is going to be a $27 hardcover on the 1st of October. And I mentioned this is of interest to mountaineering fans here. I don't know how many avid mountain climbers there are on BookTube. Lots and lots of people I know on BookTube who like going out and about and roughing it. But what about climbing mountains? I don't think there's anybody listening to me right now that climbs mountains. But do you know of any good YouTube channels about mountain climbing? Amateur alpinists, they all film things now. But I don't know that I've ever found a YouTube channel that I kind of sort of liked. If you have any suggestions along those lines, feel free to let me know. And of course, if you are an alpinist, and I'm just misreading the crowd, if you want this book, and even if, as an alpinist, you might consider using your expertise at the sport to write a review of this book, feel free to let me know. I would be happy to send it to you wherever you live in rural New Zealand. And then you can write a review for Open Letters Review, the online literary journal where I'm one of the editors. You can write a review of a new book on mountaineering. That will mean, in case of somebody out there listening to whom this applies, that would mean that not only do you have personal experiences you can document climbing mountains, but you also now have the beginning of a string file of reviewing books about climbing mountains. And what was the name of her magazine? Katie Ives' magazine? The Alpinist? Is that what her magazine is called? Summit magazine, I believe, is still in print. And her magazine is The Alpinist, and there are probably others. That's a market for book reviews. Just so you know, I'm just offering. That's all. So that's our little mail haul for this boiling hot morning. It's nonfiction. It's one thing about imaginary peaks and what that tells us about our quest for the blank spaces on the map, and the Amur River, which Colin Thurbrun and his publicist team is going to say is just about as little known as those empty places on the map. A travel log of the absolutely standard traditional kind, where the author actually treks a route and brings you back stories. That has been a treasured and deservedly popular sub-branch of travel writing for 300 years. So, or maybe if you want to say a lot longer than that if you count Marco Polo. And then the New Yorker, the latest New Yorker. So that's the mail for today. Boiling hot. If you are in this, well, I'm going to call it a heat wave. All of the official news channels are not calling it a heat wave. It definitely is one. But if you're in the swath of this thing, it's a huge part of the country. Just try to stay cool. Take a page from the Beans book. She's being very laid back because she knows what's lurking out there. We'll be going out in it very shortly, and I'm not looking forward to that at all. but I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.